Howdy. It's great to see you. Over the years, some SpongeBob episodes have gained some controversy and some very disapproving glares from other people. Some of these episodes might have just been ahead of their time, or maybe they're handling a subject that's deemed distasteful by society. Or maybe media outlets can just get overzealous on the poor sponge. Occasionally, these episodes can even get completely banned. So we're going to talk about both the controversial and the outright banned episodes today. Let's check out the 10 controversial or banned SpongeBob episodes.
But you said...
Number 10.
How the are ya?
Midlife Crustacean, banned for its panty raid scene.
Panty raid? The what?
This is probably the most obvious choice, since this episode's banning was a big story at the time, and the episode was pulled from rotation completely as early as 2018. According to a Nickelodeon representative, quote, "This episode has been confirmed to be pulled from further reruns on American television due to storyline concerns." It can't even be found on streaming services such as Paramount Plus or Amazon Prime. But interestingly, even back in 2002, the episode kept getting postponed from airing in place of episodes like Wet Painters or Krusty Krab Training Video. It was later postponed again in favor of Sailor Mouth, which is an episode we'll discuss more later. Anyway, in case you don't remember, this episode's all about Krabs having a full-on midlife crisis and trying his best to relate to younger people. So he decides to join SpongeBob and Patrick, of all people, on a night on the town. Unfortunately, he is in fact asking the advice of SpongeBob. And in 2003, when he was 18, he considered blowing bubbles a daring day out. So, you know, not exactly typical interests of an 18-year-old younger person. But I think Mr. Krabs' portrayal here is still one of the most relatable portrayals in early season SpongeBob. Oftentimes, a person will realize they're getting older when they realize how different they are to the younger generation. They talk differently, their music is different, what they consider fun is different, and they handle problems differently.
Goodbye, pals!
We used to beat people up for saying things like that!
So what is it in Midlife Crustacean that could possibly be so bad? Well...
I guess you're gonna miss the panty raid.
yeah, I guess humor is another of those things that really changes with the time. SpongeBob, Patrick, and Krabs endeavor to break into someone's house to steal their panties. This does of course backfire on them, and they're punished for it, but this raid was considered unsuitable for children. Now to be fair, Japanimation has been doing panty raids for years without anyone even batting an eyelid. For example, Dragon Ball, or Shinobuden from the early 2000s. I mean, if the Japanese saw this scene, they'd probably be like, "That's it? Where's the tentacles?" But in the Western world, Spongy is under a lot more parental scrutiny, so he's got to keep a lid on his suggestions of trespassing into people's houses and stealing their underwear. Though personally, this episode still pops into my head when I'm reminded I'm getting older too. But hey, I hope I've still got many adventures to come and can keep doing videos here for a long time. I mean, like Krabs, I'll probably get bored if I don't keep doing my job, so, you know, I'll be here a while.
I ain't old! I ain't old!
Hey, Patrick, how the are ya?
And for number 9,
How the are ya?
Rockabye Bivalve. Controversial somehow for two men raising a baby, and SpongeBob's sexual orientation implications. Strangely enough, I recently discovered there's been a long-running debate on SpongeBob's sexual orientation. Apparently, some people wonder this because SpongeBob isn't exactly your stereotypical masculine character.
Who are you expecting? Tiny Tim? Wait. Oh, big aren't they?
Dude.
And I get that because the show leans into how not masculine he is all the time. Finding his own personal definition of manhood was a whole premise of the first SpongeBob movie.
Now that we're men, we got a manly flair. We got the stuff, we're tough enough to save the day.
Apparently, this long-running controversy can actually be traced right back to this one episode, as it centers around SpongeBob and Patrick assuming parental roles over a very small scallop. Oh yeah, now we're talking. I used to pick up a pack of seared scallops every day on the way to my servo shift. Oh, when they turn golden brown. Oh, he's alive? Oh, sorry, never mind.
Just call me Daddy!
Personally, I'd argue this episode was a bit ahead of its time with its portrayal of SpongeBob and Patrick as a couple, since it portrays them so normally. There's no big line drawn around it, they're just people, or sponges and starfish. It feels kinda similar to Clyde's parents in The Loud House. They're just a couple trying to raise a kid and dealing with the challenges that come out of it.
Kid's got a stinky.
Did you take care of him? My hands are kind of full.
Wish I could, but I gotta get going.
Going? Where are you going?
Going to work. I'm the dad, remember?
Yeah, the episode does poke fun at what an odd couple they are, but I think they actually capture their roles well. Patrick is portrayed as an inattentive dad, and SpongeBob is portrayed as an overworked mum. Nothing about their relationship implies anything inappropriate or anything that just cheapens the humor. And neither of these characters we know so well feel like they're being rewritten to make these roles work. And that's something that would be a really big problem in mid-season SpongeBob. Whereas Midlife Crustacean has parts that didn't age well, this episode has parts that age better and better.
Don't you two stop being adorable.
And for number 8, SpongeBob's Last Stand. Controversial for promoting environmentalism. Why is that a controversy? Anyway. Hang on, this old clunker got controversy? As I mentioned in my SpongeBob Specials video, I still think this is one of the most boring, forgettable, and inoffensive specials the show has ever done. It's about Plankton planning to tear down jellyfish fields in order to make a superhighway that will send the Krusty Krab out of business.
What? Who approved this plan?
So in order to stop this from happening, SpongeBob and Patrick protest the highway. Sadly, the fact that this episode has gotten any controversy is probably the most interesting thing about it. SpongeBob and Patrick are going about their protest in ways that are surprisingly accurate to traditional protesting. Peaceful protesting like placards, public singing, that sort of jazz. But apparently, some people thought the episode was glorifying environmentalism. But I don't fully get the complaint because it certainly doesn't glorify protesting. If anything, it paints an ugly picture on the results of protesting. Spongy and Patrick are pelted with things for their protesting. They're even arrested by the police. In fact, by the halfway point, their activism looks completely useless. And it's only when the entirety of the Bikini Bottom community sees the results and they work together that they're actually able to destroy the highway. I could be wrong, but my best guess is it was controversial because of the way it vilified the building of roads. And the building of roads can be a very important part of dealing with traffic congestion and a growing population. Who knows, maybe the highway was minimizing traffic jams. Maybe Plankton was actually a hero who brought much less daily stress to commuters on his highway.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got super highway preparations to be attending to.
The highway is painted as the dooming of the Krusty Krab. But with all that traffic, why didn't Krabs take advantage of it and make the Krusty Truck Stop? If he had gotten fuel, coffee, and steak for truck drivers, he would have made bucket loads of money. Anyway, maybe if someone had at least given a throwaway line of the importance of road, and that conservation of nature isn't everything, maybe the episode would have gone down better. Honestly, it's tough to say.
Praise Neptune.
Hey, Patrick, how the are ya?
And for 7 lucky 7,
How the are ya?
Just One Bite and Procrastination. Controversial for its deleted scenes. While I am roping these two together, I would say their controversies are quite different, but both resulted in the episodes having scenes that were quietly removed from repeat viewings, though nowadays both scenes can be found in their entirety on YouTube. As a kid, I actually had the VHS tape of Just One Bite, and the deleted scene was included in that one. I never even realized the television version was different until years later. Just One Bite is another episode that's made a few appearances on this channel. It's about Squidward developing an obsession for Krabby Patties and eventually taking extreme measures by breaking into the Krusty Krab to steal one. Originally, Squidward triggered a trap thinking it was just a bucket of water, only to realize he was very mistaken.
Hey, this isn't water. This is gas.
My best bet is this scene was removed because the episode aired mere months after the 9/11 attacks. So imagery of Squidward burning alive, understandably, didn't seem very appropriate. I think another point is that this is a more imitatable scene. I don't think the writers wanted to give kids the idea of mixing fire and gasoline. As for the scenes deleted in Procrastination, I wouldn't say they're as hard to figure out. The first deleted scene involves SpongeBob looking out the window and seeing his friends hanging at the beach. Here, Patrick is seen applying suntan lotion to Sandy. This scene was apparently removed because some people thought it looked too much like Patrick was removing Sandy's bra. And, well, I guess that is another way to avoid tan lines. Honestly, when I saw this episode as a kid, I never personally got this impression myself. Though I do remember wondering if this scene meant that SpongeBob actually wanted to apply sunscreen to Sandy himself. And this would imply, all the way back in early seasons, that he has a physical attraction to her. And he doesn't want Patrick applying suntan himself, while he's forced to sit inside. And at this point in the series anyway, they were very hesitant about SpongeBob showing romantic interest in Sandy. The second deleted scene is pretty easy to understand. In fact, I'll just let this one play.
I'll be one step closer to my driver's license.
I mean, yeah, that is a fairly intense image, but I don't think most kids would bat an eyelid at this nowadays. It's actually pretty tame compared to some of the stunt junk on YouTube nowadays. Personally, I try to remain cautiously optimistic until proven wrong. Hopefully, most kids have the common sense to not do things as dangerous. Number 6. One-course meal and a pal for Gary. Controversial for very poor use of dark humor. While I couldn't find much media controversy here, I could certainly find plenty of fan controversy for this episode. Both of the episodes were considered to misuse dark humor in ways that completely ruined the show's characters. Both are also considered some of the worst episodes the show has ever made. And, well, yeah, in the past years, these two episodes have definitely appeared on my worst SpongeBob lists. As you might already know, One-Course Meal portrays Krabs as extremely cruel, as he completely traumatizes Plankton, and yeah, it's pretty unpleasant to watch.
Really? He's a mess!
It could be argued, though, that a pal for Gary did worse by portraying SpongeBob in both his cruelest and stupidest lights, as he's uncharacteristically impatient and blind to how his new pet treats Gary, aka trying to eat him.
You put Fluffy down right now. Bad boy Gary. Bad, bad.
For both these episodes, the mindset going in seemed to be, if you need to be dark, be as dark as possible. And that whole idea seems to have backfired on them. While I personally do like well-done dark humor, it's very tricky to get right, and it takes a respectable amount of writing skill to get dark humor right in a kid's cartoon. I think dark comedy can work really well if we're not changing the character to suit the episode. No one wants to see SpongeBob and Krabs be one-note jerks, and no one wants to see Gary continually suffer. But on the other hand, I laugh a lot when I see an optimistic SpongeBob stuck in rock bottom, with just one bad thing happening to him after the other. And it's funny because SpongeBob stays true to his character. This is how SpongeBob would react in this terrible situation. It's hilarious to me to see his optimism and continual determination just continually thwarted.
Barnacles!
But one-note dark humor like these two episodes is just boring to me. One-Course Meal is just constant traumatizer character moments filled with shots of Plankton scared or crying. And A Pal for Gary is just bad pet owner jokes, filled in with scenes of a pet getting chased and almost killed. And where's the variety in that? But these episodes have already been talked about a lot, including by me, so I'll try and keep it brief. Needless to say, if you have to give a character like SpongeBob an entirely new personality to accommodate the episode, well, you probably have to return to the drawing board. Number 5. SpongeBob, You're Fired. Controversial for being offensive to poor and unemployed people. Oh, well, this is a surprise. I never thought I'd talk about Filler the Special again, but I guess it shows just how badly they botched up the message on unemployment. So full disclaimer, it actually took me 2 hours of researching and rewriting to get my head around all the controversy and different messages in this episode. And honestly, I still don't think I paid it full justice, but I'll try and cover it as concisely as possible without waffling on. I'll first try and give you a quick plot summary in case you can't remember the episode or haven't seen it. It's about SpongeBob getting fired, oddly enough, so Krabs can save some chump change.
And it turns out that I'll save a whole nickel if I cut your salary.
And strangely, SpongeBob becomes completely incapable of finding a new job, since apparently he's defined by this job and only this job. Apparently all SpongeBob can do now or ever is make Krabby Patties. This results in him becoming a depressed, useless, barely functional, bitter mess that is thoroughly unappealing to watch.
I used to feed everyone in Bikini Bottom. Now I just feed you.
That's not very optimistic for you, buddy. I'd swear that was out of character for you. In fact, he only gets quote-unquote purpose in life when he starts working at the Krusty Krab again. So what controversy did this episode stir? Well, the episode was lambasted by fans and critics alike, but it also caused a lot of controversy between both left and right-wing news outlets. To start with, critics, including myself, generally thought it was a boring, garbage episode overall, and completely out of character for SpongeBob. Some thought the episode was an attack on the American food stamp program. Some claim SpongeBob was, quote-unquote, fighting the good fight against government services. Excuse me. And all he needed was hard work and conviction. Another good example of this was the New York Post, which wrote, quote, "Lest he sit around idly, mooching off the social services of Bikini Bottom, a depressed SpongeBob sets out to return to gainful employment wherever he can find it." What world do these people live in? But some critics also accuse the author, Andrea Morabito, of attacking poor people who rely on government assistance. Apparently, there was 2 particular scenes in this episode that gained a lot of this heavy political division.
Being unemployed is the best gig I know.
Unemployment may be fun for you, but I need to get a job.
Yeah, I'm serious. That was it. Now, I'm all for people caring. That's a good thing. But do you think maybe they were seeing patterns where there weren't any patterns to be seen? I think what actually got people annoyed or happy at this episode was the way it depicted or vilified unemployed people. It basically depicted unemployed people as lazy who treated unemployment like a quote-unquote lifestyle choice. Funnily enough, some people are bothered by this gross oversimplification of a massively complicated issue that affects countless human lives, and others consider it a good way of blaming victims for their own issues. This episode's a reminder that your job should never entirely define your worth, and that's not who SpongeBob is either. How you treat other people defines your worth far more than your job ever will. That sounds a lot more like the SpongeBob I know. In the words of Al Sharpton at MSNBC, "So a sponge who lives in a pineapple under the sea doesn't need government help. That means no one does?" Whether you or I ever need government help, that doesn't make you or I any less or more of a person. And for number 4,
Krabs is, Right you are, Patrick.
Sailor Mouth. Controversial for excessive swearing. As good as an episode as this is, I do at least understand where the controversy is coming from. It's about SpongeBob and Patrick learning a bad word while reading some writing on the dumpster, and they consider it fancy talk.
That's one of those sentence enhancers.
Sentence enhancers?
You use it when you want to talk fancy.
But when they start sharing their newfound word with the world, well, the citizens are disgusted and repulsed by it.
Today's special is a Krabby Patty served in a greasy sauce and grilled to perfection.
While gratuitous swearing is pretty commonplace nowadays, like with a fair bit of the YouTube gaming community, excessive swearing has certainly never gone down well in television history. Of course, there isn't any actual swearing, but bleeped dolphin sounds. But the episode is very relatable. I think a lot of people's first swear words would play pretty similarly to this. They find a word that they think sounds cool or mature, or in this case, fancy talk.
We were only using our sentence enhancers.
Yeah, it's fancy talk.
But eventually they get corrected and realize it's a bad word.
Bad word.
It's awkwardly realistic, but also funny. But again, because SpongeBob is often considered a kid's show, particularly in early years, well, this resulted in the episode getting some blame for an increase in swearing in young kids, as shown in this Wolves and Sheep's Clothing report. For example, the Parents Television Council believed that this episode was, quote, an implicit attempt to promote and satirize the use of profanity amongst children, end quote. And because clearly the PTC didn't care much for Spongy, in a later report they listed Sailor Mouth as an example of how profane, sexual and violent activity have increased in children's television programming. Oh, come on. Really? It's SpongeBob. Surely this group is off their rocker. Fortunately, it wasn't all one-sided. Richard Huff of the New York Daily News later criticized this report. He claimed the PTC misinterpreted Sailor Mouth over its intent to satirize profanity. Because as he said, the episode is all about the perils of using bad language, not about the bad language itself. In fact, at the end of the episode, Krabs, SpongeBob, and Patrick are all punished by Krabs' mother for their foul language.
You should all be ashamed. And if you're going to talk like sailors, then you're going to work like sailors.
Personally, I love this episode, and it remains in my top 10 favorite SpongeBob episodes. If you're curious, my friend Jem and myself gave it a good look in the best SpongeBob episodes. And for number 3, Selling Out. Controversial for promoting left-wing politics and demonizing big businesses. This is another episode that is about Krabs getting old, and again, it's filled with controversy. What a weird coincidence for the early show. The episode is about Mr. Krabs selling the Krusty Krab and finally getting all the money he could ever want.
Jumping King Neptune!
Then realizing he's bored.
Wait a minute. I hate golf.
If you are curious, I talked about Krabs' very relatable challenge here in Darkest SpongeBob episodes. But here, let's focus on the episode's controversy, because it lets me talk about Blandy Franchising Company, which is always a good thing. The undisputed best name for a company in history. So the complaints of news outlets like The Hollywood Reporter were that this episode demonizes big businesses, treating them as soulless and boring.
I think the stained glass bar stool can go over here, and the pseudo hand-carved wooden sports flag display case can go over there.
But it's really hard for me to empathize with the controversy here, because I can't watch the scene without laughing.
Allow me to introduce myself. Howard Blandy, president of the Blandy Franchising Company.
He just rolls it off the tongue so well. I would love to tell someone I work for the Blandy Franchising Company. That would just be wonderful. But I can at least understand this isn't the most flattering portrayal of big businesses. It's funny, but it isn't exactly glorifying large corporations. And while the big business might be portrayed as the bad guys of the episode, they didn't exactly come off as realistic to me. Part of what makes it funny is how unashamedly stereotypical they are. Besides, if you actually look at the inside of Krabby-O Mondays, it looks like the customers are having a really good time. They're enjoying themselves. The place is bustling with life. There's definitely some concerns about how they treat their staff, but from a customer's perspective, I might actually enjoy visiting Krabby-O Mondays.
Look around you. Our customers are quite content with the contrived and the mediocre.
Number 2. Squirrel jokes, controversial in its discussion of racism. You might remember me discussing this in Darkest SpongeBob episodes. And as I mentioned, this episode is about addressing a controversy rather than dealing with a controversy. That controversy being racism and discrimination. And quite frankly, it's done gracefully and elegantly, since technically Sandy is an immigrant. But she's also someone that most viewers like and can at least empathize with.
I made Texas tea and cookies. Well, come on in. Hey!
Along with Spongy, Sandy's my favorite character in the show, so I was able to connect with her personal struggle more. In case you don't know, the episode's about SpongeBob making derogatory and cheap jokes about Sandy that become a hit in the comedy scene.
What's up with that squirrel fur? I guess fleas need a home too, huh?
Which quite frankly don't speak wonders about the quality of Bikini Bottom's comedy circuit. But anyway, this results in Sandy being ridiculed by people on the street, as they take the jokes SpongeBob is making and turn them into untrue stereotypes.
Hello, little critter. What's your name?
Don't stand too close to a squirrel, Billy. You'll catch it stupid.
Stupidity isn't a virus, you twonk. And this is pretty much the main crux of where the controversy comes from. When people don't realize these are jokes and not fact. And it may help viewers better understand why minorities might not like people making cheap jokes or stereotyping them. And through Sandy, we're able to see the consequential discrimination they might get.
Hello, Sandy. Me, Patrick.
I could kind of let SpongeBob off the hook until Sandy directly asks him to stop near the end and he just keeps doing it anyway. Not a good moment, Spongy.
How come it takes more than one squirrel to screw in a light bulb?
I also like the portrayal of Sandy as all the stereotypical jokes SpongeBob has made of her. Because honestly, does this seem at all like the Sandy we know?
You even done got me advice.
Sandy, that's not a...
Ain't that bird?
And it does result in SpongeBob getting some well-deserved payback for not listening to his friend. I've kept this one short as there was minimal backlash to it, but I wanted to at least mention it. And for number 1, we have a banned episode. Quarantine Crabs, banned for its virus storyline. This is one of the few SpongeBob episodes that barely got an airing before it was banned, and I definitely suspect it may stay that way. But honestly, we're really not missing out on that much. I'd say it's one of my absolute least favorite SpongeBob episodes, and after doing these videos for 6 years, well, that's against some stiff competition. Even when I tracked down the episode, I mostly just found it boring and kinda grotesque. Basically, the episode starts with a health inspector coming into the Krusty Krab, claiming someone in the restaurant has clam flu.
Someone in this restaurant is infected with the highly contagious clam flu.
But honestly, you could change the word clam flu with you know what, and the story wouldn't change much. But no one knows who has clam flu. So the crew panics, and Krabs steadily goes insane with paranoia. As his insanity escalates, Krabs locks up SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, Mrs. Puffs, and even his daughter Pearl in the freezer. Jeepers, he even implies he killed his old Navy buddies by doing this.
You let them out of the freezer once they were better, right?
Huh? I suppose someone let him out. Eventually.
Anyway, as you might have guessed, in 2020, the subject of viruses, quarantine, and pandemics remains a very, very sore subject for the entire world, I think. And the episode doesn't even attempt to handle the subject with any grace and care. I don't think there are even that many jokes in the episode. It's mostly the crew brutally fighting amongst themselves and steadily getting sicker. Where's the humor here? Even the music has this needlessly dark edge to it. In fact, by the end, the entire Krusty Krab is encased in a crate and then just dumped on the chum bucket. I can certainly understand why the episode was banned, and there's little point to complaining about an episode that never actually aired. Overall, Quarantine Crabs is very gross and actually has some of the most grotesque imagery in the entire series. And it was banned and controversial because it poorly handled the most life-changing global event in modern history. So although I don't personally recommend watching it, I do want to show you at least the one line I found kind of funny.
Alright, let's put this crab on ice.
And with that, we've reached the other side of this dive into the controversial and banned SpongeBob episodes. And as I mentioned, if you've got your own thoughts on these episodes, feel free to mention them in the comments. And you know what to do if you like the video, I'm not going to pester you about. Thank you for your support. I like to think, in this community here, we respect each other's opinions, as long as they're not hurting or endangering anyone. Anyway, I'll be out with a less serious and more silly video soon. Please look after yourself and each other. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Goodbye.